Good evening. You're watching the News at 6 with me, Sean Russell. The News at 6 is all about the day's biggest developing story, and we'll be filling you in on them over the next half hour. But first, the headlines we're tracking right now. Government and opposition sparring over net neutrality echoes in the Lok Sabha. Rahul Gandhi accuses the government of selling out to corporates here too. The government assures it's under no pressure. A farmer commits suicide at Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal's rally in the capital against the land bill. Blame game breaks out between the Aam Aadmi Party and the BJP. The Indian Met Department's first monsoon forecast for the year predicts below normal rains. Economists cite huge buffer stocks as hope against a sharp rise in food prices. Finance Minister Arun Jaitley says all efforts are on track for implementation of the goods and services tax by the 1st of April 2016, meets finance ministers of 18 states over their concerns. And Saudi Arabia says it has called off its campaign of airstrikes against Houthi rebels in Yemen. Focus shifts to the massive humanitarian crisis that looms in the war-ravaged country. Well, the top story this evening, the internet neutrality debate was the focus of sparring between the government and opposition in the Lok Sabha today, with Congress Vice President Rahul Gandhi taking the charge here too and saying that the government was selling out to corporates. Now, the government promised it fully supported internet access for all, rejecting it was under any pressure on the matter. Yes, more.
The net neutrality debate is a trial balloon floated by the government to hand over internet space to corporates. Rahul Gandhi charged in the Lok Sabha on Wednesday, vowing to oppose it tooth and nail. Gandhi cited the fight for net neutrality on Facebook, Twitter and other social media platforms. He stressed that the Congress would keep up pressure on the government on the issue.
1 million people have registered to fight for net neutrality. Youth have voted. They are asking on Twitter, on Facebook, on all other applications. They are fighting for net neutrality, and this government is trying to carve out the net and hand it over to some corporates. I would request the government to please stop the TRAI consultation and to look into changing the law or writing a law for net neutrality. Thank you.
The issue dominated the 0 hour in the Lok Sabha on Wednesday, the government refuting allegations of being under pressure of corporates on net neutrality, insisting that it and not the TRAI would take a final decision on the matter. Telecom and IT Minister Ravi Shankar Prasad said the government stood strongly against any form of discrimination on availability of the internet to the masses.
सदन को बहुत विनम्रता से बताना चाहते हैं कि इस कंट्रोवर्सी के आने के पहले ही मैंने कहा था कि हमारी सरकार इस देश के नौजवानों के इंटरनेट के एक्टिविज्म का अभिनंदन करती है, जिसने हिंदुस्तान के आईटी पावर को आगे बढ़ाया। हमारे प्रधानमंत्री ने डिजिटल इंडिया की कल्पना की है, जिसे हम इंप्लीमेंट कर रहे हैं, जिसमें उनका निर्देश है सारे देश के लोगों को इंटरनेट की सुविधा उपलब्ध होनी चाहिए।
The government has clarified that a committee has been formed to study the net neutrality issue. It's been asked to submit its report in the second week of May. The TRAI has also initiated discussions on the matter. In the last few weeks, the launch of Airtel Zero and Internet.org have fueled a massive debate on the net neutrality issue, with activists in several websites initiating petitions against tampering with it. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha Television.
An information technology industry body, Nasscom, has strongly advocated the net neutrality and proposed a synergistic model for internet platforms, applications and telecoms. Explaining the importance of net neutrality, Nasscom said it creates an open and level playing field that facilitates innovation, adoption and inclusion. He added that consumers need to have unfettered access to services provided by the service providers. Earlier, the Cellular Operators Association of India reaffirmed its support to net neutrality, claiming it will enable access to internet for all as part of the government's Digital India vision.
We believe that this user's right to choose what they want to access and what they want to see, which is inviolable and akin to the fundamental right to freedom of speech, is one such right that gets seriously compromised if the regulations fail to proscribe or prohibit price or non-price based discrimination in the access of such content by telecom service providers.
A lot has been happening across the country. Debates have been on in living rooms about net neutrality. What is it all about? And the fact that it's now come into Parliament as well. So we thought we'll get an expert to help better understand net neutrality and the ramifications that it has. Pawan Dugal, cyber law expert, now joins us. Thank you very much for coming in, Mr. Dugal. While the basic understanding of net neutrality, I think, has been established over the past week or so, but in terms of what happened in Parliament today, the opposition's charge and the government's commitment itself as far as net neutrality is concerned, I think it wasn't that kind of a standalone statement by the government saying they are for net neutrality. They said that internet penetration would happen and it would increase all across India. But so where is the controversy? The cellular operators of India are saying they're for net neutrality. So other than the telecom companies in the tribe who just asked for a consultation on this, is there really a debate?
In fact, there's a much bigger debate that's happening, and the bigger debate is can the internet be seen to be the preserve of a select few, or is it a global heritage? One is crystal clear that internet is a global heritage for common usage for mankind as a whole. But in case if internet, instead of being an equalizer, tends to be utilized for dividing people into internet haves and internet have-nots, then clearly there are concerns that are bound to come in. So basis the debates that are happening in Parliament, the impression that one particular party is giving is that the internet should not be sold off to the hands of the corporates. On the other hand, the vast millions of Indians who are using internet on its current neutral network access should not be locked out of any kind of an access to the internet. So I think there are both the sides of the coin, but the good thing is that there does not need to be any hurry, because the skies are not falling tomorrow morning. The fact still remains that the relevant, shall I say, views of all stakeholders need to be collated. They need to be understood, analyzed, and ultimately, if the government feels that the recommendations of TRAI will be important or will be relevant enough to be legislated upon, then the government will have to do so. But clearly, the largest good of the largest number of people and the vast amount of public interest issues involved in this particular ecosystem have to be kept in mind, primarily because India is a different ballgame altogether. In India, we have a huge, live, vibrant mobile web, where a majority of Indians are today accessing internet only through their devices, which are communication devices, and nothing else. So in a scenario like this, I think we need to effectively ensure that the constitutional rights of these mobile users on the internet are adequately protected, and no kind of predatory schemes come into force which will end up negating the value and the utility of internet for the teeming Indians and millions.
All right, so as far as the telecom company, just playing the devil's advocate over here, the telecom companies are not just doing it for the money. They have a valid concern, saying that, it's ultimately their networks that are carrying so much of data, so they should be adequately compensated. Is there a valid argument as to what the telecom operators are saying?
See, the telecom operators have an argument that they are losing their revenues thanks to these newly disruptive technologies known as over-the-top technologies or OTTs like WhatsApp. However, that does not mean that for the purposes of compensating these service providers for losses that they are incurring, the common man has to be penalized. Please understand, we are trying to mix up the debate. The issue of net neutrality is far more bigger, far more vaster, and far more stronger in its impact than a limited point of how to regulate over-the-top technologies. Please understand, telecom service providers have been here in this business, have been making money, because if they were not making money, there was nothing actually forcing them to continue to be in business. So they are making money. And if these new technologies come in, which are disruptive in nature, they have to take it as an integral part of their business risks. And of course, they have to find out ways of how the government can effectively regulate. But this regulation of these new called disruptive technologies should not be done at the cost of the common man. Imagine if you and me, if thanks to these preferential schemes, we end up paying 150 to 450 rupees per month more on a per connection bill, then it's going to have a humongous impact upon the way internet is likely to further shape up the growth of the Indian economy in the coming times. So I think these are two distinct issues, because the issue of net neutrality is far more bigger. Let's not just confuse that or equal that to regulating over-the-top applications, which have far more other issues.
All right, that brings me to my next question of the larger question over here, of the larger debate, the laws that govern the internet in India. Now, most of the laws that govern relating to this are, really old. They're from the 19th century, some more recently drafted. But in terms of a cohesive policy, do you think, as far as the internet and governance of that is concerned, should the government be stepping into this domain? Can the government step into? Because that then gets into the entire question of the government's jurisdiction of the internet. So is there a larger policy framework that is being discussed?
Well, clearly we have to realize that the existing law is completely silent on net neutrality. The Information Technology Act 2000 does not mention the word net neutrality. So going forward, the larger public policy framework issue is going to be, how will India go ahead and define what is net neutrality? Because each country is coming up with its own definition of net neutrality. There is no common universal standards of how do you determine net neutrality. Because the Indian approach to net neutrality will have to be distinctly different, keeping in mind the new mobile realities of its users and the mobile platforms. Clearly, we need to first understand how we will define net neutrality. More significantly, if the government wants to then act, it will have to come up with an appropriate legislative framework. It could either be a law, it could be changes or amendments in the Information Technology Act 2000, and only by means of such a scenario can the government go ahead and deprive people of the right to access the internet, which I believe is part of the fundamental right to life under Article 21 of the Constitution, which incidentally can only be interfered with in accordance with procedure established by law. So there's a larger, bigger public legal framework issue involved, which the government needs to take control of. The government also needs to be alive of the fact that only a few countries in the world have enacted laws on net neutrality. We will have to look at how their success ratios have been, how far has that been beneficial, but more significantly, how much of that learning can be transported into the Indian ecosystem, because the cut and paste approach will not work. We will have to come up with our own customized solution and access or approach to net neutrality.
All right, so at least the voices are coming in, the opinions are certainly coming in over net neutrality. Mr. Pawan Duggal at the forefront of leading that movement for net neutrality. Thanks very much for coming in and helping us understand this issue a little better. Thanks so much for that. Well, moving on now, for the second successive year, monsoon is likely to be below normal across the country. Now, the prediction indicates part of northwest and central India to be the most affected regions. Releasing the first forecast for 2015, Science and Technology Minister Harshvardhan said the rains will be 93% of the 50-year average. He said that the chance of deficient monsoon is 33%, probability of a normal monsoon is 28%. Now, the prediction will add to the concerns of the government over the output prospects for major summer crops such as rice, cane, soybean and cotton. Last year's deficit monsoon and unseasonal rains in the past few months that destroyed standing crops across large parts of the country.
Quantitatively, the monsoon seasonal rainfall is likely to be 93% of the long period average. That there is a 35% probability of monsoon rainfall to remain below normal.
Yes, and last month's inclement weather may have caused widespread damage to the rabi crop, but there's still hope for the consumers. While the wheat crop suffered maximum damage, overflowing buffer stocks are expected to hold down prices. But the rains may still have some impact on fruit and vegetable prices, particularly mangoes.
The recent unseasonal rains may have wrecked many a farmer's life, but they may not impact prices yet, especially for wheat and rice. For a guessed requirement of 21 million tons of rice and wheat for April, India is holding buffer stocks of 49 million tons. Moreover, retail inflation has already declined, having softened to a 3-month low in March.
Extensive damage has happened to wheat. Certainly there will be a pressure, but because we have substantial food stock and storage of wheats available, so I guess government has the ability to intervene in the market and probably not let the wheat prices flare up.
The fall in prices is more substantial when seen over a period of 1 year. Consumer Price Index for food and beverages fell from a high of 9.66% in April 2014 to 6.2% in March 2015. But damage to perishable commodities like fruits and vegetables could well offset this.
I think this still does remain a cause for some caution at this point in time, despite the fact that we have seen easing of both wholesale and retail inflation in the month of March.
Worried about some fruits. So mango this year may not be as cheap as normally we are accustomed to, because mango crop has been damaged quite a bit.
The RBI's first bi-monthly monetary policy review predicted a decline in inflation to 4% by August and then rise by the year end. Further, initial reports say this year's monsoon could be normal. Heartening news considering India depends on the southwest monsoon for 60% of its net sown area. Krishnan and Tripaঠি's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
And the Aam Aadmi Party joined the protest against the proposed land acquisition bill. The party organized a mega farmers rally in Delhi today. Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal hit out at the centre for pushing through the controversial land bill. He warned of a nationwide agitation if the union government continued to push the bill, which he termed was anti-farmer. The rally was, however, marred after a farmer from Rajasthan committed suicide at the venue.
आज से पूरे 1 साल पहले इस देश के लोगों ने मोदी सरकार को बहुत विश्वास करके वोट दिया था। 1 साल के अंदर क्या हो गया कि वही देश का किसान आज भारतीय जनता पार्टी और नरेंद्र मोदी की सरकार के ऊपर से पूरी तरह से विश्वास खो चुका है। 1 साल के अंदर क्या हो गया कि आज किसान को लगता है कि नरेंद्र मोदी सरकार किसानों की सरकार नहीं है।
Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal launched a scathing attack on the Modi government as his Aam Aadmi Party joined the protests against the proposed land acquisition bill. Addressing a mega farmers rally at the Jantar Mantar in Delhi, Kejriwal said the government has betrayed people who brought it to power a year ago. Kejriwal accused the Modi government of only working for the super rich. He even threatened to widen the stir against the centre if it goes ahead with the contentious land bill.
नरेंद्र मोदी सरकार को यह अध्यादेश लाने की क्यों जरूरत पड़ी? वो कौन सी मजबूरी थी? वो कौन सी इमरजेंसी थी? वो कौन सी अर्जेंसी थी? या किसी कोई बड़े सुपर अमीर आदमी को फायदा पहुंचाना था, उसकी अर्जेंसी थी?
However, the rally turned into a tragedy. A farmer from Rajasthan who had come to participate in the rally committed suicide by hanging himself from a tree at the venue. He was immediately rushed to the nearby RML hospital but was declared dead on arrival. The incident triggered a blame game among political parties as leaders rushed to the RML hospital.
These tall leaders of Aam Aadmi Party chose to watch the whole thing unfold in front of them right from the stage, but none of them came down the stage. Merely because of politics, humanity died today.
दिल्ली पुलिस ने आज जो कार्रवाई ना करके, बचाने का प्रयास ना करके जो घिनौना काम किया है, उसकी मैं किन शब्दों में निंदा करूं। हमारे कार्यकर्ता ही उनकी बॉडी को लेकर अस्पताल पहुंचे हैं।
Home Minister Rajnath Singh also expressed grief over the incident and ordered an immediate probe. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, time for a very quick break right now, but coming up on the other side, a massive storm in Bihar has killed 38 people. It raises more concerns about crop loss. More on that on the other side.
आजादी के बाद कैसे बदला परिवेश, कैसे बनी संसद, कैसे उठा देश।
When the world sleeps, India will awake to life and freedom.
कौन थे वो लोग जो दे गए हमको शानदार विरासत, लोकतंत्र की मजबूत इमारत। राज्यसभा टेलीविजन।
Welcome back. You're watching the news at 6. Now, Finance Minister Arun Jaitley today said he is optimistic of introduction of the goods and services tax from the 1st of April next year. A constitution amendment bill on GST, he said, may be passed in the current session of Parliament. Jaitley met finance ministers of 18 states today to discuss the roadmap for the rollout of GST.
A review of the progress of goods and services tax in the states at a meeting of finance ministers of 18 states with Union Finance Minister Arun Jaitley. The move will create a nationwide unified market and remove trade barriers in the form of cascading effects of taxation from April 1st, 2016. Jaitley said he had near unanimous support from the states, terming GST a win-win situation for all. He underlined that targets are well on track to being met.
We will go ahead with the constitution amendment in the current session of Parliament. Thereafter, there are going to be 3 legislations which the empowered committee will work on. Also, the work of the subgroups has been going on. Some interim reports, etc., have been submitted. And we are trying our best to work up to an endeavor where with the support of the IT backbone which has been created, we try and maintain the target date of 1st April 2016.
Jaitley had offered to compensate the states for any loss of revenues following the implementation of the GST. He expressed hope that issues in the run-up to the introduction of GST would be smoothened out.
The bill has already been introduced. I'll be giving notice of it being taken up for discussion in the Lok Sabha. It's a constitutional amendment. It needs the support of 2/3 members of both houses of Parliament and thereafter ratification of the states.
Investors and manufacturers have long advocated the GST as a way to simplify taxes while broadening the tax base, adding as much as 2 percentage points to economic growth. It's been held up with some states reluctant to give their assent for fear of revenue losses. This meeting sends out all the right signals. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha Television.
Well, time now for all the other national news and updates in Nationwide. A powerful storm swept through eastern parts of Bihar last night, killing at least 38 people and injuring over 80. Purnia, Madhepura, Saharsa, Madhubani, Darbhanga and Samastipur districts bore the brunt of the storm, uprooting several thousand trees, damaging power lines and destroying the crops of maize, wheat and pulses. The state government has declared a compensation of 4 lakh rupees to the next of kin of those who died. Voting in Navi Mumbai municipal elections was held today in all 111 wards. These elections are seen as an acid test for the ruling BJP-Shiv Sena alliance, who are in power in Maharashtra after a gap of 15 years. All other major parties are also in the fray in the civic body election. A Jammu court today heard the bail plea of separatist leader Masrat Alam, who was arrested on charges of sedition. The court has reserved its final orders till the 25th of April. Masrat Alam filed bail application the day he was arrested. Former Orissa Chief Minister J.B. Patnaik was cremated this morning in Puri. The veteran Congress leader died at the age of 89 on Tuesday. He was admitted to a hospital following a chest pain. Odisha has declared a week-long state mourning for his death. Well, time for some international news now. And after almost a month of bombing, the Saudi-led coalition has finally ended its military operation in Yemen. A new campaign aimed at protecting civilians and preventing Houthi fighters from operating has begun. Yemen's president slammed the rebels for the crisis that has gripped the country.
Saudi Arabia has announced the end of its military campaign against Houthi rebels in Yemen. The announcement comes after nearly a month of airstrikes. Iran too welcomed the end of fighting that has caused a humanitarian crisis in the country. The focus now shifts to help Yemen recover from the crisis.
سوف تستمر قيادة التحالف في منع الميليشيات الحوثية من التحرك والقيام بأي عمليات داخل اليمن. The coalition will continue to perform their operation in matter of
عزم راسخ دارد که تمامی تلاش و ظرفیت منطقه‌ای و بین المللی خود را بیش از گذشته در مرحله بعد جهت ایجاد امنیت منطقه و گسترش صلح جهانی به کار گیرد.
The World Health Organization has warned of health crisis with increasing shortage of life-saving medicines in Yemen. The conflict has also disrupted the supply and availability of food, fuel, water and electricity across Yemen. Yemen's President Hadi slammed the rebels for the present crisis.
The World Health Organization is warning of the imminent collapse of healthcare services in Yemen Health facilities are facing increasing shortages of life-saving medicines and vital supplies, frequent disruption in power supplies, and lack of fuel for generators.
والتفوا حول مصلحة الشعب اليمني الباحث عن الحياة واستعادة دولته وهو الهدف الرئيسي لعاصفة الحزم.
United States has warned Iran not to send weapons to Yemen that could be used to threaten shipping traffic in the region.
Weapons delivered to factions within Yemen that could threaten navigation, that's a problem. And we're not sending them obscure messages, we send them very direct messages about it. My hope is generally that we can settle down the situation in Yemen.
According to UN statistics, airstrikes against Yemen have caused at least 500 civilian deaths and injured more than 1,700 others. Over 1,20,000 people have fled the war-torn country in the last few weeks. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, the Italian Coast Guard continued search operations in the Mediterranean for dozens of people still missing from that boat that capsized on Saturday. The jet toll has crossed the 800 mark. 6 dinghies packed with migrants were spotted in the Mediterranean, with officials passing life jackets to them. Italian Prime Minister Renzi called on the EU to take more visible and a collective stand to tackle the migrant trafficking problem. A homicide investigation has been launched into the incident and 2 crew members of the ferry have already been arrested, including the captain of the vessel.
Ma questo tipo di priorità è quella che noi chiediamo a un'Unione Europea che voglia essere qualcosa di diverso da un'assemblea di paesi membri di un club economico e che voglia essere qualcosa di diverso da un dotto club di specialisti tecnici che conoscono tutte le principali dinamiche geopolitiche ma che si dimenticano di dare una risposta di fronte al dolore del nostro tempo.
Well, time now for all the sports action and sports beat. Indian shuttler PV Sindhu reached the 3rd round of the Badminton Asia Championship. She defeated Uzbekistan's Khurshudyan 21-16, 21-5 in only 16 minutes. Sindhu has been out of action since January due to a foot injury. Meanwhile, Purupalli Kashyap also entered the 3rd round in the men's singles. Kashyap defeated Chinese Taipei's Zhen Hao Su 15-21, 21-18, 21-19. Former Indian Olympic Association Secretary Lalit Bhanot is all set to contest for the post of Vice President in the Asian Athletics Association. His name has been recommended by the Athletics Federation of India for elections to be held on the 1st of June. Bhanot was not allowed to contest the IOA elections last year by the International Olympic Committee as he went to jail in connection with the 2010 Commonwealth Games corruption scam. Barcelona reached the Champions League semi-finals for the 7th time in the last 8 seasons by comfortably beating Paris Saint-Germain 2-0. Barcelona completed an emphatic victory with a 5-1 aggregate. Neymar scored twice as Barcelona experienced little resistance against the French club. Bayern Munich defeated Porto 6-1 to charge into the semi-finals of the Champions League. The 5-time European champions were behind 3-1 after the first leg last week, but the German clubs showed no sign of nerves as they dismantled the hapless Portuguese side with an impressive attack to book a 4th straight last 4 spot. Well, that's all from us. Goodbye.